Merry Christmas and happy holidays to everybody. We have a special gift today as there is news about the X-Men reboot in the MCU. I also would like to just take a second and say thank you for supporting the channel this year and the previous years if you've been following me for a while. I really appreciate it. And we have some cool content coming next year, which I'll talk about in some upcoming videos. But thank you so much for all your support so far. The X-Men reboot for the MCU, which will have the new X-Men. I know we talk a lot about older legacy Fox X-Men returning, in which they are going to return as well, but we are specifically talking about the new X-Men today, new castings and everything. Marvel Studios has been working on the new X-Men reboot movie for a pretty decent time now, and it seems like, based on this new report, the script is pretty much done, at least probably mostly done at this point. The reason is because, according to a new report, the hunt for a director for the X-Men movie reboot has begun, which is really exciting because that means we're getting a lot closer. Now, if you haven't heard, we have some really decent details about what to expect from the movie already, including who the X-Men team is going to be. We also have an update on the timeline and when to expect this movie. But if you didn't know, Marvel Studios has hired Michael Leslie to write the script for the new X-Men film. Michael Leslie recently wrote The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which, in my own personal opinion, was a pretty good movie. So he has somewhat of a proven track record. Plus, not to mention, if Kevin Feige met with him, heard some of his ideas for what he wants to do with the X-Men, threw his own ideas at him, and the two of them had several conversations about what they want from the X-Men film, and Kevin Feige agreed that he was the person for the job, then I'm on board. I trust Kevin Feige when it comes to the X-Men because he's been trying to plan this for a very long time. He got his career started off at Marvel with the first X-Men film all the way back in the year 2000. And he's been thinking about the X-Men being in the MCU since Iron Man, probably even before that. So I have confidence in Kevin Feige. So this report is coming from Jeff Snyder from The Insider, and lately he has dropped a lot of very accurate scoops. He's been right about a lot recently, so there's no reason to think that he wouldn't be right about this. The fact that Marvel Studios is now moving forward in the process with the X-Men film to where they need to hire a director. Now, like I mentioned, this most likely means that they are pretty much done with the script, enough for a director to read and get a good feel on pretty much what is going to happen throughout the entire movie, which means the X-Men film is making some really great progress, and we're probably not too far away from actually hearing that some actors are auditioning and or meeting with Marvel Studios for possible X-Men roles. And it's at that point where things are going to get pretty crazy because we're going to start to hear that certain actors are going to be cast for certain roles, and that'll most likely lead us to figuring out who the actual X-Men team cast is. Although we might know quite a bit about the new X-Men team, and this is coming from Michael Leslie, the writer himself. He suggested before using the full X-Men 97 roster for the new X-Men team. And if Marvel Studios decides to go that route, that means we're going to have Cyclops, Jean Grey, Rogue, Storm, Beast, Gambit, Nightcrawler, Professor X, Jubilee, Morph, Bishop, Magneto, Nightcrawler, and Sunspot. And that would be pretty cool to see. However, keep in mind that this is just something that he kind of suggested when he went in to talk to Marvel Studios. It doesn't mean that that's what they landed on. That's what they're going to do. Because I do actually think they're going to go for a younger X-Men route. That way, these characters, and specifically the actors who play them, can stick around in the MCU for a pretty long time. And we know that Marvel Studios is seemingly going this route because of another recent report from Jeff Snyder. He stated that the actress Sadie Sink is reportedly Marvel's frontrunner to play Jean Grey in the MCU. Most people know Sadie Sink from Stranger Things. And we talked about this a little bit before, but right now she is 22 years old. By the time we get the X-Men reboot movie, and we'll talk about that timeline in just a bit, she should be probably around 25 years old. So this implies that the X-Men team is going to be relatively young, which could mean that we could possibly get an X-Men First Class, with some other characters possibly thrown in there. So it could be sort of a combination of what Kevin Feige would want, which is probably a First Class, and what Michael Leslie would want, which seemingly is some of the members from X-Men 97. So that could have Cyclops, Jean Grey, Beast, Professor Xavier. They could throw Magneto in there. Then we could get characters like Angel, Iceman, and then really whoever else they decide need to be a part of the first X-Men team. Now, let's talk about that timeline. According to Jeff Snyder, this movie is not coming out until after Avengers Secret Wars, which basically comes as not that big of a surprise. Will some new X-Men characters show up before Avengers Secret Wars? It is totally possible, especially if you consider what Marvel Studios is really trying to do with their soft reboot. Based off of what we have heard, Marvel Studios is essentially going to kind of fuse some timelines and universes together to create our new MCU that comes after Avengers Secret Wars. So basically, the soft reboot will enable the X-Men to be in the MCU, which means some X-Men could have existed in a universe before, and now that universe is fused into the main one, essentially allowing some of these new X-Men to have appeared before Avengers Secret Wars. But we did hear a very recent, I'll call it just a rumor, because it's not confirmed, and unfortunately at this point in time, we'll never probably get a confirmation about this because of its nature revolving around Kang. But the rumor was that Kang, or He Who Remains, actually wiped the X-Men out of the sacred timeline. They were there, but they caused too big of a threat to him, so he basically got rid of all mutants. With Kang now gone and all of his variants gone, and we'll see what Marvel Studios does to address that, if they even do address that, that means the mutants can return, and that could be Marvel's way of stating, hey, this is why the mutants haven't been around in the main universe. Because of course, the big question a lot of people ask is, well, if the mutants have existed this entire time in the MCU, why haven't they been helping with anything? And as far as reasons go and why they aren't there, this is a pretty good one. Is this something they'll stick with since Kang is no longer really involved in anything? Maybe. So there is a possibility that we can get some of these new X-Men characters appearing in Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, but I am still guessing that most of them are probably going to be saved for a pretty big reveal. The X-Men in the MCU is going to be a massive event. And based off of what we've heard, Kevin Feige is going to take the opportunity that is given to him with the Multiverse Saga and Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars to kind of give a final farewell to the old X-Men. Again, he started working with Marvel on the very first X-Men film in 2000. This has been a huge journey for him. It's going to be upcoming 25 years for him. We saw a little bit of this in Deadpool and Wolverine, where they were talking about a chance to be remembered, a legacy. That's what Kevin Feige wants to do for kind of the rest of everybody that came before the MCU. And that's a very nice sentiment. But the new X-Men movie is well underway now. Great update for the film. Once they get that director, they'll start to do the cast, and that's where things get really fun and we'll get a lot of juicy news. So if you want to keep up to date with the X-Men project, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the latest news. Please leave your thoughts about what you think about the latest news in the comments down below, and please don't forget to like this video. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.